Content is intended to provide accurate information, however, is not intended as financial, tax, or legal advice. Please consult a financial, legal, or tax professional for specific information regarding your individual situation. Opinions expressed and provided are for general informational purposes only and should not be considered a solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security.
Cornerstone Retirement Partners presents Your Course to Retirement with Grand Rapids Certified Financial Planner Ron Corser and Nolan Gosley. Cornerstone Retirement Partners are planning today for the potential of tomorrow.
You can hear me, I can hear you.
I can. All right, here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2. And welcome into the program. This is Your Course to Retirement with Grand Rapids Resource for a common sense approach to planning for your financial, your investment, and your retirement future. He is CFP Certified Financial Planner, Ron Corser. Always a pleasure, Ron. Welcome back into the program.
Thank you, and good morning to everybody listening to today's program. We're right in the middle of a beautiful winter wonderland here in Michigan. The world is cold. I don't know if it'll ever end. Just for the record, I was sick of winter back on about the 7th of January, and that doesn't help my attitude a little bit, but we'll get through this because I know spring is coming. I know it's coming. In Michigan, it may come in April, it may show up in June, but it will show up eventually. So that's good news for me. And that's the kind of mentality I'm going to use for today's program as we talk about things looking up, things looking down, what we can expect perhaps in the future, and what to plan for. So I'm ready to go today, Peter, if you are. And those of you driving to church, be careful driving. Those of you sitting at home taking notes, I'll try to talk slow so you can write this down and then come back a year from now and say, Ron, you were right, or Ron, you were wrong. I'm good with that.
Well, we always appreciate your insight and perspective on the program, Ron. Great to get that from an experienced, qualified professional, such as a certified financial planner in Grand Rapids, just a resource you always have. Ron Corser and the team from Cornerstone Retirement Partners available to you to help you look after both the health and the wealth planning. And if you'd like to be in touch, schedule a complimentary time for a review. Pick up the phone, give them a call, 616-301-2581. That is 616-301-2581. So Ron, past the time now where a lot of resolutions have come and gone, but people are always striving to make financial progress. And on this program, we were going to talk about, what is unfortunately some of the common financial mistakes that you see made probably way too often there in your offices at Cornerstone Retirement Partners.
And when we say mistakes, this is not a way to criticize people. It's just some things that perhaps get overlooked, or we make assumptions about certain things and the assumptions were a little faulty or didn't work out well. You know, one of the New Year's resolutions that I made this year was to not make any, because I have been unable to keep any of them for an extended period of time.
Oh, not make any resolutions. I thought you meant not make any mistakes. No,
okay.
Okay.
Not making any resolutions because
well, that's
sometimes it goes away after one day or 1 month, but it always goes away. And I don't need that kind of guilt in my life. So we're not going to do that. But what I would like to talk about today is maybe some of the things that people have to be aware of when it comes to planning for the future. But also, I want to talk about that 800-pound gorilla sitting in our living room that we don't like to talk about or recognize much. But I get this from our clients when we do reviews. I get this from new people when we talk of their concerns about the future. And some of it is, I think, well positioned. There's some substance there to think about. But the issue isn't, oh my goodness, the world's going to come to an end. I don't think that's going to happen. Ultimately, I read a book about it, and things do change down the road. I just don't see that happening in the near term. I could be wrong, but I don't see that. But what I do see is some things going on in the economy and some things going on in the markets that I think it's important to touch on. Not to be a negative kind of a person or a fearmonger. I am not one of those people who say, oh my goodness, the world's coming to an end. You got to buy gold, have some food supplied somewhere, and get ready for the end of the world. I'm not talking that way today in today's program. But what I am talking about is some things that For those of us who plan on living in a retirement of anywhere from 10 to 30 years, they're going to have an impact on us. And the question becomes, okay, if that's going to happen, what can we do, or what should we think about doing? You know, I mentioned a few minutes ago that we're right in the middle of winter, and I hate it. But I know spring's coming, and it's going to be here either in April or June, whatever happens in Michigan. So that gives me cause to celebrate, knowing that I can get through anything that's coming down the road. And I think it's important to kind of take that attitude and say, okay, there's some things going on in our economy and in our world. We're kind of aware of them, but let's bring them out in the open. Let's just shed some light on them and then try to figure out what's the best things we can do to maybe mitigate what may happen or take advantage of what may happen. Because there's always ways to profit from good news, bad news, tough times, hard times, good times. So that's what we're going to touch on today. And stay tuned, everybody. And going forward, if something I touch on it kind of gets your attention, give us a call at 616-301-2581. That's 616-301-2581, or go to our website, Cornerstone, www.cornerstone-rp.com. Put your information in there. I'm more than happy to talk with you.
Ron, you mentioned there's always ways to profit, even in bad times, you noted. And human psychology, I think a lot of us, unfortunately, make some missteps and mistakes during those bad times. Now, none of us like to see when the market is in red or when we are seeing declines in the market. We tend to not love opening our statements, but our natural gut knee-jerk reaction when those times come for a lot of us is to pull back from the market, from the risk, to move to cash during those bad times, and for even more of us to stop making contributions. This is exactly the opposite of what we need to be doing, because during those down times in the market, as long as the paycheck is taking care of our standard of living and we're not living off of investments, making ongoing continued contributions during those down times is actually one of the most advantageous things that we can do for our long-term, long timeline financial path and progress. And you've got number one on the list of some, unfortunately, too common mistakes: not saving enough. But when you mentioned that there are ways to profit in up markets, down markets, sideways markets, it struck me that this in particular is one area where people don't save enough, and then combine that, kind of do the wrong thing at the wrong time too often.
Yeah, so let's talk about not saving enough or saving in strange ways. One of the, I think, and it's just my opinion. See, you're going to hear my opinion today, ladies and gentlemen. So you get to criticize me if you don't like it, or you can send me an attaboy if it makes some sense. I think one of the things that really kind of always gets me to focus is what's going to happen in the future and what should we do? Now, what do I mean by that? If you watch TV, if you see something on the internet, if you talk to your friends, generally you're going to get information which is primarily negative in its format. It's going to go from, you know, if you don't buy some gold and silver and water and have medicine, you're going to have a hideout up in the Rockies, you know, it's going to be all over but the shouting, or the dollar is going to go to zero, or just buy gold, don't worry, be happy, or don't worry about anything, just keep doing what you're doing, and who knows what's going to happen and who cares. All of those things kind of make me crazy sometimes, because in this business, there are things you can do, and it's not so much saying, well, I think the market's going to go down, I better go to cash. It's a different situation to say, look, there's volatility in the market. And we've gone through enormous volatility here in the last couple of months. We really have. And the situation is such that, well, if you've made a change in your portfolio, did you make a change that can take advantage of some of this volatility? Or did you just kind of go to cash? And what I tell people, there's no real wrong decision. You know, we can only know if the decision we made was right or wrong by looking in the rearview mirror and seeing what happened 6 months ago or 6 years ago with the minor coulda, shouldas. You know, everybody has those things. I've met people who've said, I knew the market was too high back in 2000 and I got out of it and then I got back in. Same people said, I knew the market was too high in 2007. I got out of it, got back in later. There are always going to be folks like that. And I hope they're telling the truth. I really do, because they've done well then timing the market. But trying to figure out the direction of the market, even the pros on Wall Street have a difficult time with that. So then the question becomes, okay, there's news out there. What in the world do we do with it? Now I'm going to focus on a few things that have a long-term and will have a long-term impact on our retirement plans. It's neither good nor bad, ladies and gentlemen. It's just what I think is potentially going to happen down the road, which will impact what we do. So it's like last August, we knew winter was coming in Michigan. We prepared for it. Now it's here. Now it's time really to get ready to say, well, what are we going to do in the springtime? What are we going to do in the summertime? Are we going to plan vacations, even though it's winter now? Are we going to plan, like in our own family, our front yard has gotten terminal, so we have to have somebody come out and make it look pretty again. So we're planning on that now, even though it's wintertime. So let's talk about some things that I see down the road that could have an impact on our life. Now, please do not jump out of the first floor window on these things, because I don't want you to do that. But there are things that everybody that I've talked to talks about. So it's not like I'm bringing brand new news. I'm just kind of exposing it to the light of day. 4 things: pension plans, Medicare, Social Security, those kinds of things, the debt, and really when it gets down to where's the best place to put some of our money down the road to make sure we're going to be okay. So let's talk about some of the things. Let's talk about pension plans. It is very difficult. If you Google it or do some serious research, it is really difficult to find a pension plan that is what we call fully funded. Now, there are some out there. Man, if you're in them, bless you. But there are a lot that aren't. You know, we hear in the news what's going on with the state of Illinois and New York and those pension plans. They're beyond hope. They've just got too many people drawing on too little money. So there's going to be an adjustment. Down the road, I always tell folks when we're planning for a retirement plan that's going to last 20 to 30 years, we have to focus on generating income. And if you have a pension plan, that's great. But let's focus on, for example, if that pension plan is going to pay you $3,000 a month, when we plan for retirement income, let's plan on $2,500 a month. If we're wrong, you're going to have more money. But if we made a plan to help you with income in retirement, that's going to require less of your pension plan, and it does get encumbered in some way, you won't be harmed. So doesn't it make sense? We know that pension plans by and large are in somewhat stressed. So let's plan on that. It's like trying to plan on a market. This past year, it went up about 19%. Do you want to plan on it going up 19% this year? The year following that? The next 10 years, 19%? That's never happened, but we can certainly plan on it. But if we plan on something that's never happened and probably the probability is not that great, you expose yourself to undue risk from my point of view. So in terms of what we always call the most important part of retirement planning is figuring out if you have enough income in retirement to retire. And if a pension plan, if you're blessed with it, a pension plan, how do we manage the income coming in? Do we want to maximize it all and spend it all and not plan on anything being adjusted? I spoke to an airline pilot last month. And, you know, at one point in time, their pension plan was about $160,000 a year. And they went through a couple bankruptcies with the airline he flies for. And now he's going to get a good one. It'll be about $50,000. That's still a substantial pension plan. But if he was planning his whole retirement on the higher number, his retirement plan would be destroyed right now. So that's when I say, if you have a pension plan and it's giving you $3,000 a month, when we do income planning, let's plan on 2,500. Let's just reduce it automatically and figure out if we can create an income plan of retirement that will make adjustments for that. It just makes great sense for that. So those of you who have a pension plan out there who maybe are not in the retirement mode yet, but you're getting closer, and you want to make sure that you have enough income in retirement to retire, give us a call, 616-301-2581, 616-301-2581, or go to our website, www.cornerstone-rp.com, put your information in there, and we'll give you a call and see how we can help you. There's nothing that can happen that's horrible that can't be planned for and adjusted for. But pension plans, by and large, are in some trouble. So let's deal with it now kind of while we can and make sure that whatever does happen, if anything happens, you're ready for it. Does that make sense?
Absolutely. And Ron, you speak of pension plans, and with those, we typically associate pensions with working for a company or an entity that when we retire, we continue to get paid from them for the duration of our retirement. Fantastic retirement stability. You know, that's a great piece of our retirement. Unfortunately, there are less and less of them being offered. Most of the companies within the private sector ended or froze their pensions long ago and transitioned more of it onto the 401k. But there's another system for retirement that we kind of all depend on for that lifelong income. It's kind of the government version of a pension, Social Security. And they're already telling us that into the future, Social Security could experience some problems. At the end of the day, we're talking about this in the light of not saving enough. Do we really need to look at these systems, the headline troubles and difficulties that they are facing, and then really carefully examine our personal rate of savings to possibly, hopefully, make up the difference?
That's a good way to put it. And here's how I'd respond. I think it's important when we do planning for folks that say, haven't retired yet, and they're going to have a pension, and they're all going to get Social Security at some point in time, is to, number one, find out how you can maximize your Social Security benefits. Because if everybody takes a look at their Social Security statement, somewhere in there, it's going to say, if no changes are made in the Social Security retirement system by the year 2034, 2037, it seems to change a lot, we're only going to have 75% of the money we need to pay benefits. That sounds like a potential cut in benefits. What I tell people is, those of us on Social Security, I doubt they're going to cut our benefits. It's political suicide. But what they can change is the things around the Social Security benefit. Those not in a benefit, say they're under 50, they can increase the time you get full retirement age. Take it from, say, 67, where it is now for a lot of younger folks, to put it up to age 70 or 72. We can increase the taxes on Social Security. There's things the government can do which will help the Social Security system continue to provide predictable income. Will it be perfect? No. But it's just my opinion that those people already in the system won't experience a cut, because that'll get us to vote against the politicians, and they hate that. So they won't do that. But it's much easier to say, you know, I have a son who's going to be 47 and a daughter 44. It'd be much easier to say your new retirement age is 70. Have a nice day. They're so far away from it, it's not going to impact their lifestyle right now. So what we do know is that some of that's going to change. So it's going to be more important, I think, for planners to look to help people with their Social Security strategy prior to them taking the Social Security benefit, right? That just makes great sense.
I'm 41, Ron, and I would much rather them face this issue and just tell me right now that your full retirement age is going to be a few years later, and adjust the system so that I get something, rather than not facing the issue. And then when I am about retirement age, the Social Security system not being there in its current form or fashion of some resource for me in retirement?
I think the Social Security system will always be there for us in some fashion. I just think for younger people, it's not going to be what it is today. That's just my opinion, ladies and gentlemen. That's all it is. There's X amount of dollars available to pay these kinds of benefits. And we think about what our beloved government is doing. I mean, everybody in America is getting some sort of welfare, if you will. And Social Security is nothing more than a transfer payment. Everybody's getting something from the government. So they're not going to take away those things from us, but they may tax them more. They may make some adjustments on younger people. It's the least painful way for a politician to do that. And we have the other issue going on is that more and more people are retiring. Baby boomers are still retiring at about 10,000 a day for the next 8 to 10 years. I mean, and it's cresting. And when that wave hits, there's a lot of people who say that's going to create some major problems. But those are down the road right now, and it may be far down the road. I don't know how far down, but I do know that demographically, our society is aging. And when people get old, what do retirees do? What do boomers do? What does anybody do? They generally spend less. They quit buying the second home, the second skidoo, the vintage shotgun, things like that, and just start to not hoard, but to be a little more careful with how they spend.
I remember many years ago, Ron, there was a guy who was basically all over the financial channels, a Harvard economist, Harry Dent, and he predicted way back when the stock market boom ahead and that the Dow would hit 30,000. And for about 2 decades, everybody sort of laughed at that prediction, and then it eventually happened. But he also predicted the crash ahead because of this demographic cliff.
Yeah.
Now, maybe he was far, far before his time. I haven't heard from Mr. Harry S. Dent in quite some time. He hasn't had the prevalence that he once did. But looking at demographics, there are some scary kind of numbers there for the spending that each age demographic does. And that was one of the areas that he focused on. Who buys new houses? Who are consumers? Who are buying all the things to fill up their house and their life? It's not seniors. It's not retirees in general. And as one generation begins to pass away, those assets transfer to the next one. Those people are not buying at the same rate either. And he said that that demographic cliff was one of the indicators he paid attention to in looking at the economy ahead.
Yeah, and I was a member of his network.
Okay, so you're familiar. Yeah.
I absolutely preach the gospel, so to speak, because the demographic issue, if I can just step back here for a minute, what are demographics? That basically is, how old is the population in your country? How does it sit out? How many are between 0 and 18? How many are 70 and above and things like that? The older the population, the more fiscal problems the government has. If we go back, Harry Dent predicted that Japan, and he did this in the middle 80s when Japan was supposedly going to take over the world, right? For those of us who are old enough to remember that, they were going to take over the world. He predicted they were going to have a depression. And everybody mocked him and laughed at him. Well, guess what? In 1990, the Nikkei reached 40-some thousand. It blew up and they have never come back since. They have more old people now than they can shake a stick at. And what the government's being forced to do, other than just continuing to print money over the last 3 decades, is to really take money from the younger people to give it to the older guys. So that's what's going on. And it's happening in Europe. It's starting to happen in China. Demographics is a real issue. So we face it here. And I'm going to upset some people with what I'm about to say here, but it's Sunday, so forgive me for what I'm about to say. There's a lot of people coming into our country in various and sundry ways. But the people coming into this country those ways are not old people. They're not old people, they're young people. And eventually a majority of them are going to find work and start paying into these systems. And that's going to be a help in terms of the demographic cliff to push it out a little more. So that's coming. We know it's coming. we know it's going to have even a greater impact on what the government is going to provide for us in Social Security. And the other one is healthcare. You know, the government's providing Medicare now. And Medicare, for those of us in Medicare, it works pretty well. It really does. We get the kind of care we need. Right now with this COVID nonsense, you know, sometimes it's hard to get in. You got to wait 3 months to have some basic, simple surgery or things like that. But the system is bouncing back, and it's a pretty good healthcare system. The problem with Medicare is that it's running out of money and it's in worse shape than Social Security. So I don't want to offend anybody out there too badly, but this idea of Medicare for all is insanity, because we have a system right now that's in worse shape really than Social Security. So putting more people in it for some reason doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But for those of us who are getting close to retirement, Medicare becomes the default healthcare situation. So we know that healthcare costs are going up. We know that. How high is up? Nobody really knows. But it's been estimated by Fidelity and Vanguard and some other companies that have looked at this. They estimate that a couple age 65 that gets into the Medicare system and lives until, say, 85 or 87 will pay between $200,000 and $300,000 in healthcare costs. And this doesn't include going into a long-term care facility or something. That's strictly the cost of paying the Medicare, the healthcare cost. So that's another issue that we have to face in retirement. And the way we face it, the way planning for it, is we plan that it's going to cost more. We just do that when it comes to, do I have enough income in retirement to retire? We plan that it's going to cost more and go up. My wife, Nancy, does a great job with clients in the Medicare arena. And every year, the costs have gone up. Every year, the drug costs have gone up. That's simply a fact of life. So if you're going to create a retirement income plan that's going to give you the income you need, it really is critical that you do the following. Price in more money in terms of an annual expense for healthcare. Plan on Social Security being a little less than what you have. Plan on, if you're blessed with a pension, plan on it being a little less. That doesn't mean it's going to be. It just means from planning, you plan those things so it doesn't surprise you.
Yeah.
It's very simple. I have a snowblower. I have used it frequently to much of my chagrin. My snowblower does pretty good on snow 8 to 12 inches. We get a 20-incher. It doesn't work so good. So, you know, I probably should plan on, but my next door neighbor bought a 2-stage. So I'm going to make him my best friend if we get 20 inches of snow, and I'll use his if I have to, and he'll let me. So these are some of the things that they're not pleasant to talk about, but if we talk about them and look at them, we can deal with it. So give us a call, 616-301-2581. 616-301-2581. If these things have been on your mind, ladies and gentlemen, let us help you kind of unwind them and take a look at them and see how we can make adjustments to whatever your future planning is in retirement, so that not only do you protect yourself against what may happen, but perhaps we can take advantage of what may happen also, and you can profit from it. So give us a call, 616-301-2581. Be more than happy to help you.
Just one of the tips that we will cover on today's program on how to avoid some, unfortunately, too common financial mistakes. We want to save more, the mistake not saving enough, and there's plenty of reasons why. We all need to take our savings a little bit more seriously, put it as a little higher priority. Talking about that with certified financial planner Ron Corser on Your Course to Retirement. Once again, if you've got questions, if you would like a thorough forensic financial analysis, a detailed review and strategy session, pick up the phone and give a call, 616-301-2581. That's 616-301-2581. Quick break. We'll be right back with more with Ron Corser here on Your Course to Retirement.
Cornerstone Retirement Partners presents Your Course to Retirement with Grand Rapids Certified Financial Planner Ron Corser and Nolan Gosley. Cornerstone Retirement Partners are planning today for the potential of tomorrow. Visit cornerstone-rp.com for many valuable resources, including those mentioned on this show and other great episodes of Your Course to Retirement.
And we're back here on Your Course to Retirement, Grand Rapids, your resource for a common sense approach to planning. And here with us, providing the guidance and perspective, is your resource, Certified Financial Planner, CFP, Ron Courser, founding member there at Cornerstone Retirement Partners. I want to remind you as we get into the segment, if you've got any questions, you're always welcome to give a call. If you would like a detailed financial investment or retirement analysis and strategy session, you're welcome to give a call, 616-301-2581, 616-301-2581. And on today's program, the overarching theme is common financial mistakes. We talked about maybe not saving enough, and we talked about several reasons why we need to take our saving and our investment progress very seriously, because some of the traditional pillars of support for retirement are no longer there, or maybe changing or looking a little different into the future. Now, moving on here, we've got a few others. Ron, beating ourselves up for things we didn't know or making decisions based on past performance. Hindsight is sometimes painful because it's so clear. They say it's 2020, but I think sometimes it's even clearer than that, except when we try to use hindsight to make decisions into the future, things can be different. I've heard the most dangerous words in investing is it's going to be different this time, but it seems like it's always different into the future, and it's rarely ever predictable based on past performance.
It's kind of like following the Detroit Lions. They haven't won anything since 1957, and every year we assume they're still going to be lousy. And every year we're right, but there's going to come a day when they're not lousy, and that will shock us. And a lot of times when we look at the markets, we look at what's going on. Human beings, the way God made us, is we think in a straight line a lot of times. So after the 2000 debacle that went into 2002, and then we had 9/11 and all of that, the markets took a horrible beating, and everybody thought, well, this is it. The markets are always going to be this way. They're going to be down. And it turned out we had a few good years. And then 2008 happened. And then people thought, man, this is going to be ugly. It's going to be ugly forever. Now the reverse is happening. We've had a decade where the markets have done very well. And it's been a most outstanding decade. So we tend to assume as human beings that the next decade is going to be the same. And the decade after that's going to be the same. So that if we want to figure out how to generate income from our life savings, the whole key is to just assume that, like last year, the market's going to go up 18% a year for the next decade. That's the way human beings think. The way financial advisors think is maybe that's not true. Maybe we ought to look at just a little different way to do it. So when we think about how do we make decisions, we can rely on past performance somewhat. But as Yogi Berra said, making predictions are really hard, especially about the future. So when we think about what we're going to do here, I can show folks a chart from 2000, January 1 to end of 2020, the annualized rate of return. This is an annualized rate of return, not one time, is just a little under 5% in the S&P 500. And when I show people that chart, they just have a tough time believing it because we've gone through such a wonderful decade here. But we've had two major crack-ups, and we can show that rarely do markets go up 20 years in a row. So the question becomes, how do we make a decision going forward? Now, I follow a lot of people. Sometimes we've made decisions that have been spot on and been really great, and other times we've missed the mark a little bit. And I think this year will potentially be a reasonably good year still. We're going through some volatility now. This whole COVID thing, I think ultimately settles down a little bit. And then we get into an election season, and who knows what kind of goofy things are going to happen. But the market and politics are not as, hooked up at the hip as we think. So I think we have an opportunity to have another gain this year. Then the question becomes, what are we going to do with that? What about the following year? That may be a little iffy. I don't know. But here's the key to this. if we've made a profit over the last few years in our retirement planning, and we need to make sure that whatever happens down the road, we have enough income in retirement to retire, or if we're already retired, that we have a strategy in place to generate more income if in fact something happens to the cost of Medicare going way up, or Social Security being somehow taxed more, or the impact being reduced in our lifestyle. What are we going to do? So here's one of the things that'll always help folks. When it comes to retirement planning, the most important thing you can do is make sure you have enough income every month, every year coming in. That seems so silly, we hardly ever pay attention to it, but we do. And one of the things I would probably encourage people even more than we do normally is going through this year and maybe next year too. Let's take a look at perhaps taking some of the gains that we've had. There's nothing wrong with taking profits that you've earned in the stock market and put it into places where you can protect your money a little more, and that will generate more predictable income. Now, I'm about to use a word which has been deemed a 4-letter word, but it actually has 6 letters in it. What is that? It's an annuity. There are several kinds of annuities. Some are good, some are bad, some are ugly. But sometimes the right kind of annuity, particularly if it's a principal protected one, may make some sense for people who want to lock in more predictable income. And it's a great way, if you've had profits, to take some of that profit and perhaps put it in a place where it can be safe. Everybody likes safety, and we don't want to miss out on what's going up. And what I tell people, when's the best time? I know nobody listening to today's program has ever gone into a casino. I know none of you have. But if you ever by mistake turned left and found yourself in a casino, the best place to have the best chance of making money is at the blackjack table. You have a 47% chance of winning, which means the casino has a 53% chance of taking all your money. So if you stay there long enough, if you stay in a casino long enough, you are guaranteed to lose all your money. Now, if we think about the stock market as having some casino tendencies, it's okay to take a profit. You know, when is the best time to walk out of the casino? When you've made money. So it's okay to take profits from your investment and maybe put those, reallocate them into a place that'll generate a little more predictable income going forward. Because it's just my opinion. I think the more predictable income you can build into a retirement plan, the more secure you're going to be, the better retirement plan you'll have, and the more peace of mind you have. So ladies and gentlemen, if some of this is hitting a nerve or makes some sense to you and you want to talk about it, give us a call, 616-301-2581. 616-301-2581, or please go to our website, www.cornerstone-rp.com, and put your information in there too. You can also listen to today's program by going to our website on the blog place, and you can download this program or previous programs in pieces or in total to hear what we have to say. Our message is pretty consistent throughout all of these. We're a big fan and a big believer in building as much predictable income as possible into your retirement plan to take care of the what ifs in life when it comes to making sure you have the right health insurance if you're in the Medicare program, if you've covered the bases in those areas, if you pick the right Social Security strategy for you and your wife if you're married. We do all of that for you. And you can go to the past shows and listen to some of that. But if you don't want to do that, please give us a call at 616-301-2581, 616-301-2581. We can and will help you. And I think it will all be better off.
I saw a recent interview with a professional athlete, and the question was posed, would you rather have $2 million lump sum tax-free or $10,000 a month for the rest of your life. And even though this was a young guy, and these professional athletes are not always credited with having the best financial minds, this young guy was actually pretty astute. And he said, people have the tendency to blow a lump sum when they get it. I'd rather have the 10,000 a month for the rest of my life. There's nothing that says I can't go out and earn other income or do something with that income to create even more passive income. But they say past performance can never guarantee future results. One area where I think we can all look back and agree, Ron, is that our income, our past income, has probably been pretty important to bring us to the point where we are today. The level of financial success, the lump sum that we have been able to accumulate, what we have been able to acquire over our lifetime, that has all really been as a result of income. And another example I can think of, the lottery winners, where they have the choice between the one-time lump sum or the lifetime of income. A lot of times there's a whole show that pertains to people who have taken that lump sum and then gone on to end up in a worse financial situation than when they started. The lottery ruined my life. Looking back, the income really has been key. And when you say that one of your philosophies there at Cornerstone Retirement Partners is to get as much retirement income as possible, that's really tipping the cap and giving acknowledgement to the fact that income has been and will continue to be one of the most important factors for our ongoing financial success.
It really is. The whole retirement plan, as a country and as a financial people, we focused, I think, too much on the lump sum. I really think that.
I think that's partly human nature, and then partly what we're taught to focus on.
Yeah, it really is. So, we go back to you, Peter. You got $10 million you've saved already, and you're what, 41 years old?
It's fantastic.
Yeah, and you say to me, Ron, can I retire? And my question to you is, well, how much income in retirement do you need? And your response is, well, I need $1 million a year. I got this lifestyle to keep. So I said, Peter, you got $10 million, but you need $1 million a year to live on. Yep. You don't have enough income in retirement to retire on. But my goodness, how many people have saved $10 million? See, it's important to save, and it's important to have a bucket full of money. But the real key is how can we turn that around to give us the income we need in retirement, so that we have joy, peace of mind, and we can do the things that we hoped that we could always do. Take care of ourselves, take care of our family, and if there's anything to pass it on to the next generation. So
the mistake, though, that we're focusing on, Ron, is making decisions based on past performance. And in one aspect, predicting the future of the market based on the past is next to impossible, and trying to time the market based on the past, next to impossible. But one thing that we can agree on is that the results of the income, that has been important. Looking back at the past, the income has been that most important factor and will continue to be that most important factor into the future.
You touched on something. When we do our semi-annual or annual reviews with clients, one of the questions I get a long time is am I okay? And I say to people, what do you mean okay? Well, do I have enough money to keep doing what I'm doing? And what they're talking about is income. Is their life savings giving them enough income to keep doing what they're doing? Because they're still healthy, they're still mentally young, there's still things that they want to continue to do because they're having a good time. And it always gets down to that thing called income. It always does. Do I have enough of that coming in? And will I be able to do this for the next few years, or do I have to make an adjustment in the next few years? That's a key question we always try to answer for our clients. And most of the time, unless things have really changed dramatically, it's like, just keep doing what you're doing. You're going to be okay. You're going to have the income you need. And they just say, thank you. They breathe a sigh of relief. Thank you. And that's a great thing to be able, for a financial advisor, Peter, that is a great thing to be able to look at a client and say, you're going to be okay. Keep doing what you're doing if you're having a good time. You can keep doing it. It's a great, for me, it's a great experience. It's a great thing to say, yeah, you're going to be all right. Keep doing it. Enjoy it. That means, yeah, we may have been a bit lucky, but things are going well because of the planning that we did 5 or 10 years ago. It's working.
Once again, if you'd like to have those conversations to get that reassurance or spot some areas where you could be more efficient or address issues that let you know that you're not quite there yet, but what you need to do, the steps you need to take in order to get in that kind of confident position, pick up the phone and give Ron Corser, certified financial planner, and his team there at Cornerstone Retirement Partners a call, 616-301-2581, 616-301-2581. Ron, a lot of us feel like the market could be a little bit on a precipice here. Where do you see, or how often do you see people make missteps or mistakes in trying to predict the future and time the market and make investment decisions based off what they believe will happen into the future?
I think where that comes up most is when, let's say, somebody's retiring this year and they looked at their 401k plan, and last year it made 18.5%. And they assume that that's normal. And I can understand assuming that. As a financial advisor, I have to say, well, let's don't plan on that every year, because if we do and it doesn't happen, it could end up badly. But that's a very common way that folks, I think about it. What I've learned over the last 27 years in business is that people hate to lose money. They hate losing money more than they like making money. That is a really normal thing. I'm that way. I really am. So if that's the case, what I have found is that when we do reviews with clients, if we made an assumption in the investment plan, we were looking for a 6% rate of return and we got 6.5, they made money, people are very content with that. It's when they look at the statement and last month they had 500,000 and this month they have 450,000 that they get a little antsy and a little edgy. People hate, we do as normally we hate to lose. We absolutely hate to lose. And we enjoy winning, but we like to avoid losses more. So one of the things we try to help everybody understand is that if you set a goal that makes some sense for you, and how do you do that? Well, you try to make a calculation that says if you need out of your life savings $3,000 a month, and to get that $3,000, depending on whatever the lump sum is, if you could just get 5% annual, you could get your $3,000 a month. Then the question becomes, why would you want to try to earn 15%? If what you need, you can earn with 5. If you can achieve your goal with the least amount of risk, and isn't that really what it's about? How do I take the least amount of risk to get where I want to go? This Saturday, I'm going in to see my brother in the Detroit area. The speed limit is 70 miles an hour. Let's assume that it's going to be bright and sunny and dry roads. What's the least amount of risk I can take to get to see my brother? Driving 70 miles an hour. I will get there in approximately 2 hours and 55 minutes. But if the roads are dry and I drive between 85 and 90, I can get to see him in 2 hours and 33 minutes because I've timed it. But what's the risk? The risk is I'll meet an employee of the state who will bust me for reckless driving because he hasn't his donut. Or maybe I'll have a wreck and crash and not kill ourselves, but just mess ourselves up. So I have a choice to make going to see my brother. What's the least amount of risk I should take to go see him? Now, if it's snowing, even though the speed limit's 70, maybe the best solution for me is to drive 45 miles an hour and I'll get there in 3.5 hours or so, or 4, but I will get there. So it's always about what's the least amount of risk I'm going to take to get what I need, get what I want. So if this makes sense, ladies and gentlemen, give us a call at 616-301-2581, 616-301-2581. We can help you figure out what's the least amount of risk you need to take to get what you want. You can always take more. There's no rule that says you can't. You can always take more. If you want 15% rate of return, I will look you in the eye with love in my heart and say, okay, we can try to do this, but it's probably not going to work on a long-term basis, but I'll still help you. So give us a call at 616-301-2581. We can help you and we'll do that for you.
Ron, in your analogy on your trip to your brother's house, you can choose to take more risk with the potential for some reward of getting there sooner. But it is only potential because the more risk you take, there are likelihoods that you will encounter certain difficulties along the way. It's not a certainty. If I go 90, I will make it there by this point in time. I could potentially make it there a little quicker, but it is not certain. And then what I heard when you mentioned the snow and the road conditions is that sometimes there are other mitigating factors kind of beyond and outside of our control that can impact that risk reward ratio. And you talked about how it's human nature sort of to look back and say, hey, last year I made 18 or 20% return, so I would expect that into the future. But one of the mitigating factors and one of the common mistakes not rebalancing is if we have seen good returns so far and continue that same kind of behavior, sometimes those factors are balanced against us. We're taking even more risk, sometimes without the recognition that we need to be slowing down or tapping the brakes or pulling it back some.
Yeah, it gets down to, let's say you have a mutual fund or an exchange traded fund that went up 34% this past year, but its 10-year average is 12. Chances are that particular investment, that particular security is not going to continue to go up that fast because there's something called reversion to the mean. Things always come back to where they were on a long-term basis. So sometimes when you have a couple securities that have gone up dramatically, it's really difficult for people to do, to sell winners. But sometimes it's a really good strategy, is to take profits and reallocate into some other things that have the potential to go up, but perhaps haven't done as well over the last 2 or 3 years, but they're in a sector that may have promise for you. So rebalancing is important in portfolios. And it's something that everybody should take a look at doing. But if you've had a run up in a big security, Tesla went from $84 a share in March of 2020 to over $1,000 a share. Now, if you'd invested 1,000 shares back then, Peter, at 84,000, you'd have been a millionaire by now, a serious millionaire. But now Tesla's price has come down a little bit. So that's just an example where a big run up eventually reverts a little bit to the mean. There's always those things, those companies that do well despite everything else. Amazon has been a great example of that. You have some of those absolutely dominating kinds of companies and securities. But overall, the investment universe is such that it really makes great sense to take a look at a portfolio at least annually and say, where have I had a lot of profit? Should I take some and rebalance it and put it into something else that potentially has profits? But taking profits is always a good idea, at least for part of your portfolio. So give us a call, ladies and gentlemen, if any of this makes any sense at all. It makes great sense to me and we can help you with it. Give us a call at 616-301-2581, 616-301-2581, and we will help you.
Well, as we have talked with Ron Courser today on the program about common financial mistakes, it strikes me that most of the things that I look back on and say, well, that was a mistake, more often than not are actually the things that I didn't do. The things that I did not take some action on that I could have are kind of the things that I end up looking back on with some regrets, some trips I could have taken, some opportunities I could have leaped at but didn't. Here's one for today's program, ladies and gentlemen. Get that financial review. Get that retirement planning strategy session. You don't want to look back and say, well, I could have been better prepared, but I didn't take the steps to get there myself. And Ron Corser is removing all the obstacles in the way, taking away any cost, any obligation for a time to sit down with an experienced, qualified professional, get their expertise and their trained eye on your situation to help you spot and identify areas where you are doing things right and maybe some areas where you could use some improvement or more attention. Pick up the phone and give a call, 616-301-2581, 616-301-2581. Ron, we do always appreciate your guidance and perspective here on the program, helping us to be more focused on the things that we can control and trying to help us avoid some of these common financial mistakes each and every week here on Your Course to Retirement.
Well, thank you everybody for tuning in. I'll let you know how my trip to my brother's went on next week's program. So enjoy everything today and bless you.
We always appreciate Ron's time here on the show. He's looking forward to hearing from you. 616-301-2581, 616-301-2581. Everyone, be safe, buckle up out there. We'll look forward to seeing you real soon or talking with you next week here on Your Course to Retirement.
Tune into Cornerstone Retirement Partners' full radio program, Your Course to Retirement, Sunday mornings at 9 o'clock at News Radio WOOD, or visit cornerstone-rp.com for many valuable resources, including those mentioned on this show and other great episodes of Your Course to Retirement.
The content of this radio show is provided for informational purposes only and is not a solicitation or recommendation of any investment strategy. You are encouraged to seek investment, tax, or legal advice from an independent professional advisor.
Ed Slott's Elite IRA Advisor Group is solely an indication that the financial advisor has attended training provided by Ed Slott and Company, passed biannual examinations on material covered at conferences and in webinars, and met other membership requirements and does not constitute an endorsement of any kind. Ed Slott's Elite IRA Advisor Group members pay a fee for the educational programs that allow them to be included in the Ed Slott's Elite IRA Advisor Group. Membership does not guarantee investment success. Fiduciary duty extends solely to investment advisory advice and does not extend to other activities such as insurance or broker-dealer services.
Advisory services offered through Brookstone Capital Management, a registered investment advisor.
Advisory clients are charged a quarterly fee for assets under management, while insurance products pay a commission, which may result in a conflict of interest regarding compensation.
Any investments and/or investment strategies mentioned involve risk, including the possible loss of principal. Any comments regarding safe and secure investments and guaranteed income streams refer only to fixed insurance products. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. Annuity guarantees are based solely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing company. Withdrawals of growth from annuities may be taxable as ordinary income in the year it is taken. Individuals should review contracts for specific details of the products featured